Good afternoon. My name is Marty Schildroth. Been asked to talk to you about lean manufacturing. I've titled my PowerPoint as Operational Lean in my discussion. What I wanted to do is talk to you a little bit about my experiences with my lean journey. I worked for a couple different companies during the course of my career, and with that, they've been very supportive of the things that I've been involved with, and they've been very on the forefront of lean and allowed me to develop in my career. So I've also had some opportunities to do some transformational activities within the organizations, and I'll talk a little bit about those. And then I've also had many mentors along the way too. I've actually got one here, and he's been a great asset as far as being able to help me in my career. The big thing about lean is always about driving out waste. And we have waste everywhere in our systems, and that's been always the focal point as far as what we've been working towards. So a little bit about me. I've had a number of years of experience, primarily in operations. And the first company that I've worked with is Anderson Corp. They're the manufacturer of windows. They have the Bayport corporate site, but they also have a site here in Des Moines. And they're a manufacturer of storm doors. And I've been involved with that company for a number of years. And I was involved with quality engineering and operations. And again, that's a very long-term company, and it's been they were very, very good as far as how they manufacture. The current company I'm with is Hach Company. They're located, the corporate is in Loveland, Colorado. They also have a manufacturing site here in Ames, just north of Des Moines. And what they do is they manufacture water testing equipment and chemistry. So as we drink our glass of water or drink our beverage, more than likely it's been tested by equipment from this company, Hach. It's part of a larger company called Danaher. You probably have heard that. They've just acquired GE Pharma over the last couple of weeks. And it's a pretty big company. I think it's a Fortune 160 right now. So they've got operations throughout the world, and it's also caused some issues with our manufacturing, which I'll talk about. I've got a degree from Iowa State and also from Drake, located right here in Des Moines. So what I thought I would do is talk a little bit about my perspective as far as our being in operations. Again, 27 years, seems like it's just flown right by, but there's been lots of challenges and opportunities that have been brought to my responsibility as far as in the responsibilities that I've had. And what I want to do is talk about a couple of those and some of the concepts and tools that were used in that lean journey that I took, and then talk about some of the metrics and the results. So the first challenge. This was earlier back in the 2000s with a site in Des Moines. We're manufacturing storm doors. We make all of our materials pretty much to stock. And so everything is pretty easy, pretty not too difficult. We just make product, put it in inventory. Well, we sell to a big box retailer, and they came back and said, we want more features and options on all of our products that you're getting from us. So we want more colors. We want more glass options. We want more hardware options. And we want to be able to have all of us be able to go to the store and have it delivered in 10 days. That was not the model that we were currently using. We would put it to stock and it would sit there 10 days. And then let alone having to have it delivered to the store. There were several thousand of them, still are, and have those delivered on time. And if we didn't do that, we'd get penalized. So we have that as one of our big challenges as far as how do you do that? Because with that, we have inventory, which corporate is saying you need to reduce. You have unit costs, which you need to reduce. And then you need to decrease the time to ship in this. So, wow. So what do you do? I'll talk about that. My second challenge came in just recently with the second career. Kind of went to this new company called Hawk. And up in Ames, we're the manufacturer of the reagents that go into the water testing. Unfortunately, the problem with this is most of the material is hazardous. So we're dealing with lots and lots of strong acids that react with the impurities in the water and tell us what is in there. So we've got about 3,000 hazardous items that we're trying to deal with on a daily basis. And all going to stock, again, so it's a stock operation. And so the customer calls up, same day, I'm expected to deliver it. Well, this new regulation came into play, global harmonized system. And it's OSHA put it on. It was passed back in the early 2000s, and it's finally starting to roll through for all of the US and North America, South America, actually all the world. And with that, it's meant to have a harmonized system of placards so that if you've seen the trucks going down the interstate, you'll see the placarding on there. It tells you what's in there, tells you what kind of corrosives and hazards associated with it. It's supposed to harmonize so everything's the same. Well, actually, everything is different now because the labeling that's required on the material that we produce and ship worldwide now has to be labeled specific for that country that it's going to. So we need to have a specific country or an address for that country and a telephone number for that country on the labels. So where we used to be able to produce batches of material, maybe 1,000 bottles, that used to be all the same, now it's 1,000 bottles, and there's lots and lots of different labeling requirements for each one of those to be able to ship out to those specific countries. That is a challenge because then it needs to be, as soon as that call comes in, you need to be able to make and ship without too much delay. So the same thing, managing inventory. We can't just create all of these items because we're selling across roughly about 140 countries around the world of these hazardous items. So if you do the math, 3,000 times 140, all of a sudden you've got lots and lots of parts. The other problem is on-time delivery. So there's no change as far as customers' expectations as far as how those parts are delivered to them, just because a new regulation comes into play. Big challenge. So I see these as, challenges, but they're opportunities. Opportunities for us to be able to deliver and manufacture, transform our manufacturing process as far as how the customers see us as a manufacturer. So their expectations are changing. We have to come back and be able to manage those. Regulations are changing, whether it's FDA, OSHA, EPA. We have to be able to manage those requirements going forward. We also have people. So all these requirements and changes that we're being asked to do, all of our folks that are currently working with us, they don't necessarily know what is in for them either, as far as, what does good look like as far as a manufacturer. So we have to come back and we have to learn how to train as far as get them on board as far as the changes that are coming and then bring them along and as far as education. Again, managing throughput, managing inventory, and all the operational expenses that come with it. So I'm going to talk about a couple of opportunities that we've got. The first one is employment. So we were talking just a little bit ago about Des Moines. Well, one of the problems that we have in this area is we have a lot of folks that are employed, but we don't have a lot of folks that are unemployed. So the employment rate's very, very high. And if you look at this, it's coming from the Department of Labor. Ames is the #1 ranked area or region within the U.S. that has the lowest unemployment rates. Iowa City's #3, and Des Moines is actually tied for 37. So just trying to get people to come in and being able to work in these areas that have the talent or have the capabilities, probably not happening. So we've got to look internally to be able to do this and bring those folks along. The other things that we are dealing with is engagement. Since we have such a low unemployment, we're competing against all of our neighbors as far as other manufacturers, as far as our resources. And if we're taking someone or hiring someone, it might be from the neighbor next door, because we've got another group of companies that are right in the same vicinity as far as where we are. We have a diverse workforce, and being able to deal with their needs and everything that comes with that. I mean, we are becoming more and more diverse, especially in the Ames and actually where I'm working right now with Hawk. It's not like it used to be, and which is really good. So we cherish the fact that we are becoming more diverse, more skill sets, and all those things that come with it. We have a number of folks that English is a second language. So how do you deal with that? Well, you have to have translators, and being able to manage that so that we have a good communication across the board, so that people understand what they're supposed to be doing and what good looks like. So the thing that we've implemented just in the past 5 years is our engagement surveys. So with that, we have asked everybody that works within the organization the same questions year over year. And it's some of the results aren't necessarily always that pleasant to read, but with that, we have action plans that come with that. And what we're trying to do is deal with, how do we address the needs of our folks? How do we make ourselves better as far as managers? How do we communicate? Communication is usually our #1 thing that everybody says that we should be doing better with. And try to make it so that people are contributing to the organization. If they don't feel like they're contributing and don't feel like they're part of the team, more than likely they're going to end up leaving and leaving next door. And that's part of the struggle, which goes back to the unemployment. So it's kind of a pattern that we have to be able to break. So I put a little image there. But what we're trying to work on is that middle portion of it. So the folks that are the 52% that are not engaged, how do you get them over into the engaged part so that they can feel like they're contributing to the organization? And we're really working towards that to increase that number. The 19, I mean, if they're going to be going, okay, I'd like to get them to the at least not engaged portion. So everybody moving up on the ladder there. So we've done a lot with amenities. We've done things with work schedules, vacations, all the things that come with that to try and keep people engaged. And the fact that everybody has a role. And I think that sometimes that gets lost, because it's like it's too important to say, well, it's just operations, or just an operator, or just a person that's sweeping up after the shift. Those folks, if they are not there and something doesn't happen that they're supposed to be taken care of, everything falls apart. And that's the thing that I keep trying to push on all of our managers, as far as, everybody has that responsibility and pulling on the rope so that we're all pulling in the same direction. Okay, back to our problem. So we have those two opportunities that are coming through. So first at Anderson, next at Hawk. You can see the part number growth that we had to deal with. So you start out year one, and then in a couple of years, you're up to an X or times X factor of number of parts that we have to be building. So whether it's a customer or whether it's a regulatory requirement, that's what we're seeing. So what do we do? Because again, I'm in operations, I'm in manufacturing, and what are those core competencies that we're having to deal with? Both Hach and Anderson, and when I look back and when we talk through this, our core competencies aren't necessarily manufacturing. Manufacturing can be done anywhere. And that's kind of the thing that really struck me as far as when I first started down this lean path. The things that we have to be worrying about are the things that are listed there as far as our core competencies. We got to have a brand, and how we manage that brand is the highest level of our competency, because whether it's Anderson, and I think everybody has a fairly good perspective of Anderson. If you're in the water testing business, which I'm sure most of you probably are not, Hach is probably not as familiar, but if you're in the municipal water system, so if you go to Des Moines Water Works and talk Hach, they'll be like, yep, we know them, and this is the product that we use. So understanding what that brand and level is, and then that service level, because both companies do this really well also, and then the quality, and the quality builds the service and brand. And then also making sure that these folks have the product that they need to have on time. So with Hach, we have lots of regulatory demands of our customers. So if we're out of stock of anything, regulatory checks don't happen, and that's not good. So from a broader perspective, as far as how this thing works, I just put this chart up here just for a perspective. The thing that we're working on to be able to address all of those new requirements is just sitting right in the middle. So manufacturing. So again, not this core competency necessarily, but what we're trying to do is move the needle on how we manufacture so that we influence what the customer sees. And we're dealing with that brand and the service and the quality. So all these things are going on, and again, just manufacturing is just a box. And then all of this is determined by the amount of time that we're using. So how do we do this? So there's a couple things that we started to work on right away. So first of all, knowing where we're at. So daily management. So we do daily management at multi-level throughout the facility so that we know how we are doing and how we're performing at whether it's at every level throughout the organization. So if we don't know what or how we're doing, how do we know how we are performing and how do we get better? So we do a daily management stand-up at work cells, at department levels, and at the site level, and at corporate. And all of this feeds into our overall performance. We also do Kaizen, probably a more familiar term. So if we don't know what to do or how to fix it, we are going after Kaizen. And Kaizen is a Japanese term, problem solving. So a cross-functional team come together, and then we solve the problem. Try to do it as fast as we can. Typically, a Kaizen event will last roughly about a week. And then from that Kaizen, we'll have layered audits as far as how do you make sure that you're sustaining what you said you're going to do. So with that, you've got folks, whether it's at the operator level or whether it's a manager level or a director level, those folks come back and come in and make sure that we are doing what we said. Because it's so easy to have a Kaizen event and it's like, yeah, we're going to do this. And then next week, we're right back into our old way of doing things. That's not what this is for. This is for transformational change. It's for step change. It's for all these things that we want to be working on. Another thing that we've implemented is Kamishibai. It's another Japanese thing. The Japanese are pretty good at lean, actually. So what this is placards so that we know whether or not we're doing well. So it's usually an audit process. So we have either a red or a green, usually cards, and we'll check, make sure that those folks or whoever's doing the audit will look, make sure that, yep, it matches the green, or if it doesn't, it matches the red. And what do we do as far as countermeasures? So that's what we've been working on towards some of these problem-solving activities. Got a couple more, maybe. 5 whys. This is one that's been used at Hach quite extensively, and Danaher. So the thing with this is a template that I'm showing you as far as what a problem-solving form would look like as you walk through and talk to folks that work at Hach. The idea behind this is that you ask, or if you have, once you've identified a problem, so the problem exists, how do you address it? And the biggest challenge that I've seen is, how do you get to root cause? Because if you don't get to root cause, you're not going to be able to solve the problem. And it's so easy to like, yep, we had a problem. What happened? Well, we didn't know what we were doing last night, and it gets lost. So we move on to the next day. The same thing happens. Well, it was something else. We didn't solve the root cause. And what this template does is it forces us to first identify the problem, get to what that standard should be, where are we at, and then work towards fixing it. So you ask yourself, why did this happen? And because, well, okay, why did that happen? And because, and then why did that happen? And you can just follow along, and pretty soon you're getting to a point, well, we are actually at root cause. And if you can get to that point, what you're going to look for is, how do you manage that going forward? So what we're looking for is our countermeasures to be able to address it, and then who's responsible. Something very similar was used at Anderson. So these are A3s. Might be familiar with that too. It's a problem-solving tool which is used for project management, also problems that come about. And again, list out the problem, what are we doing, who's responsible, and then ultimately coming up with what the solution is. And those can be used at multi-levels also. So this brings me to what we've been working on. So we had a couple of opportunities. So how do you make things faster? How do you make deal with those customer demands? So one of the things that we found is using a lot of the lean tools out there, whether it's a spaghetti diagram, looking at transactions, looking at how material flows throughout the facility. I have kind of a quick diagram as far as how our production used to look like here in the Des Moines facility. And we used to have batch manufacturing where we would make a lot of stuff. And then we move on to the next order, make a lot of stuff, because we're going to consume a lot of stuff. And then ultimately what we ended up with is building up a lot of inventory within our facilities. So that doesn't work in the new process, because we need to be able to build things one at a time. So we had to take a look at how we manufacture going forward. So we looked at how can we break apart some of these batch manufacturing processes, move them into smaller cellular type activities, and we don't get a lot of money to do this. So you have to use existing equipment, you have to use existing processes, existing people, and make this thing work, and become a highly flexible manufacturing process. And that's what we've worked towards. So I remember it well. We brought all the engineers together, talked about here's where we're going, here's what we're going to do, and they're like, you can't do this. And the point was you don't have an option not to do this. You have to do this. Otherwise, we will not be successful in what we've been already committed to. So a lot of work went into how we transform our manufacturing process into more of a cellular process. And what we ended up with was what looks like on the right. So small cells, a flexible manufacturing process, being able to make sequenced items all the way through. Some people have seen probably videos of cars going through the line, production lines where you have a white car and a red car. And we have that with our production as far as our storm doors. And what we ended up with was a cellular layout where we had visual management, flow that makes sense, and then lots of facility standards as far as, this is how you handle things. This is how you process things. It took a lot of help all the way from, the way we manage our orders when they come in, all the way through to the end when we sell things out through the door. Quite a challenge. That was about 3 months worth of modifications to our facility, and we didn't get to shut it down. We had to produce every day. So we ended up with, usually we shut down on Friday afternoon, work through Saturday, start it back up, moving a piece on the puzzle. And then the next week, we would stabilize, and then we move the other piece. And then we continue to do that all the way through. That was one of the coolest things I've been through. Flexibility. So in this whole process of moving things around in our cellular layout, we had to work on flexibility and changeovers because you just can't manufacture the way you used to. So what we looked at is how did we make things so that it's flexible? So you got flexibility within our production. So one product might be able to go 2 different ways if demand says that that's what we need. Or can we do it the other way where we have 2 products go down 1 cell and being able to address the commonality that what we're looking for is how do you manage so that you can have product go through either to demand or the most efficient process. So what we ended up with was we transitioned from a make to stock to a make to order process. And it's ironic that both companies are very similar as far as how we've transformed them. And we ended up with from a make to stock where we had 90% of our part numbers make to stock to once we did the post transition, 90% were make to order. That's quite a feat. We're still in the process of Hawk, but this is kind of where we're at right now. So how did we like I said, we measure this on a daily basis. So we measure and we call safety, quality, delivery, inventory, and cost. So SQDIC. So we're measuring those things both proactively and reactively, and they're measured at the corporate, site, area, and cell. So how did we do? So the most important thing that, especially from an ops guy, is the folks that come in at the start of the day, being able to do their thing, and then go home in the same condition. It's the most important thing that happens, especially in a manufacturing setting. What we saw both at Hawk and at Anderson, significant reduction in injuries. And this is one of the things that I'm most proud of as far as how we manage our processes going forward. And you can see the numbers there. Very nice trends. How did we do with our quality? Our quality was quite high to begin with. So I identified that as a core competency. But with quality, we measure quality and the cost of quality. So prevention, appraisal, and then failure costs. We were able to achieve virtually no change as far as our defects, because you would think that, okay, you're disrupting the apple cart. Would you expect a lot of defects to come through? We didn't. So we maintained our high level of quality all the way through. Customer was happy. We were happy also. And then also customer feedback as far as how our product is performing. Again, virtually seamless to those folks. That was nice. One thing I didn't put up here, I thought of just a little bit ago. Our scrap costs and our obsolescence costs went down big time. We didn't make a lot of things that sat around in the warehouse to become obsolete, because everything changes. We have a new year, new stuff. That goes away, and then our opportunity for scrap, that also diminished. Because as we're making it in sequence, the next person next to us finds it. Delivery. So we measure with fill rate on time, and we also have penalties. How did we do? We measure both at the customer and manufacturing. We've seen a little bit of dip on some of our Hawk items. We did not see that with our Anderson, but we're working to correct those right now. And then also we measure for schedule attainment, and those numbers were very good. So we changed a lot of things, and then we're seeing some good stuff because of that. So as we changed over to our make to order, so what we're looking for is how do you make things ideally at a batch size of 1. Didn't necessarily get to that level, but what we saw here is quantities dropping dramatically. So we would have quantities in the hundreds, thousands, and then our average size decreasing year over year. So what we're able to do is open up capacity on our production lines to be able to produce more and more instead of consuming it with all the large quantities that we were doing prior. Our inventory. So this one was a little, on our year 0, we had X. Our year 3, we actually saw an increase, but then what we did is we really turned the tide so that we were able to manage our inventory turns. So that's what the line is for. So our inventory turns, and a turn is when you sell through all your inventory during the course of a year. That's 1. If you sell it through twice, that's 2. And what we're doing is really trying to manage those turns so that our inventory is going through our warehouse quickly and distribution. And then also the other thing that we're able to do is decrease the amount of material that we have on hand. So our inventory levels go way down as a result also, because we're able to react so quickly. So again, throughput, we increased. Our inventory, we reduced. And our operating expense, we also saw that reduced. So some really good metrics as far as our inventory. And that's where your working capital gets tied up. I put some comparisons. Before, we had up to 2 weeks worth of inventory in our manufacturing area. Afterwards, 2 hours. The other thing that we've been working on is that cost. So how do our folks know whether they're winning or losing during the day? So we've been working on what you see on the right-hand side. We have it's a speedometer type looking thing, and we're measuring OEE, so overall equipment effectiveness. And this is all open source. We took it off, and we've been utilizing that in our work cells and telling our folks whether they're doing well or not. So we're looking for numbers above that, or in that green area, so 85% or better. And so how do you measure that? It's availability, performance, and quality. So availability, what's the schedule look like? Are you working that schedule? The performance, are you making what you're supposed to as far as quantity? And then quality, how many quality defects? It's a multiplier effect across all 3. We just put this into Hawk a couple years ago, and our first year, 15% improvement. So ultimately, what we're looking at is how we work. So if you look at this, and this probably goes across not just operations, it probably goes across a lot of different areas. So when we do value-added work, what is that equivalent to? And if you think about what you do during the course of a day, and what I think about what I do during the course of a day, it might add up to about 20%. Doesn't seem like very much. So we also have necessary work, 15%. So about a total of, 35%? Less than half the day. So what we're working on is trying to figure out how to manage that blue area of what we're working on. So how do you decrease the amount of blue, increase the amount of orange, and try and manage that gray area so that we are becoming more productive and more profitable as far as an organization. But this is kind of typical, and I've seen this over and over and over again. So the other things that we look at, so waste, muda is Japanese. And this came from Taiichi Ono, another Japanese guru in lean. So the different types of waste that are out there. So we have overproduction waste, can be applied for both manufacturing and in the office. So how do you manage those so that you're working on not overproducing? We also have inventory waste. So whether it's in manufacturing or office, so we're looking at one-piece flow and trying not to batch. We have the same thing in the office. Motion, we have plenty of motion, whether in office or manufacturing. Processing type waste. We have quality waste. We have waiting waste. We have transportation waste. And then people waste. So we're wasting talent. And so it's really important that we work on those. So again, that's what lean is all about, and we're trying to get to the point that we're addressing those. So DevOps, I thought, well, here's my perspective. It seems like there's never enough resources. Because for an ops guy, I'm always like, what can we do to help move things along? Because our IT folks are always busy doing something. And we've actually had to hire people in to work in the operations team to be able to work on that, like the productivity monitor that I just showed you. We just hired somebody because our IT team is not necessarily wanting to do that. They're managing other things. So that's one thing that I've seen over and over. The other thing is when we talk to our folks, we want to know whether we're winning or losing. So how do we measure? How do we measure what we're doing? Are we measuring with value-added stuff? Are we doing work that adds value? Are we doing things that are non-value-added? So as we do things, how do we measure it so that we know that what we're doing is adding to or contributing? The other thing that we work on is reducing the decision points for our folks. So if we can have a process that's aligned so that the decision points are from here to here to here, and I don't have to make decisions, that's so much better. It improves your productivity, improves your quality, improves safety, improves all the things that we need to do. And then automation. So what we're working on right now, especially with our engineering team, is trying to figure out how do we get to the point that we don't have to have all of the headcount that doesn't exist. So I figure healthy unemployment's roughly around 5%, and we're sitting at just under 2%. We have a gap there, so we're actually employing unemployable people right now, in my mind. So how do we address that going forward? So we're looking at automation and where it makes sense. And we want to make sure that, that we have processes that will support what our customer is needing in the future. The other thing that we're looking at is eliminating waste. So waste is all about what this lean topic is. So whether it all goes back to those 8 wastes that I just went through. So if we see waste, we're trying to go after it and try to minimize it because it causes nothing but problems for me. And the last thing is we are using problem solving all of the time. So, and how do we communicate that well throughout the teams? So when I look at it, the keys to survival, we have a financial understanding of the business. You know, where does this fit in as far as our manufacturing? What are we doing to affect our core competencies? Know the customer, what the expectations are. How do we manage those, and how do we look ahead so that we can not necessarily be behind the 8 ball? The other thing is process improvement, so that when we look at improving as far as a business or organization, we're looking to see that, you know, our processes are always, you know, so that we have good understanding as far as what we are doing, and the output is good to manage up with our customer expectations. And then as we establish the process improvements and continuous improvement, you know, keep working, sharpen the axe, and keep working towards that. And then focusing on those competencies, things that we do, we don't want to affect what our company is known for, how our customer sees us, and we don't want to adversely impact so that we end up with a gap as far as what we are doing and what we say we should be doing. And then the last thing is measure, measure, measure. If we are not measuring, we don't know where we're at, and we don't know how to get better. That's it.